My name is Jim Zwit. I'm 69 years old. In January of 1970, 1970, I was a sophomore at the University of Illinois Chicago, the Circle campus, and I was a hockey player there. And I played pretty well in my first year. In my second year, I thought I was playing okay, but for some reason, the coach thought otherwise and sort of benched me. And I went from the bench to not dressing to not traveling to there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not really going to get an education here. I'm more or less going to play sports. So Mr. Know-It-All at 18 and almost 19 years old decided, I don't need this school, so I quit. I quit school. I'm from a family of 9 children. So I went home and told my dad and mom what I did, and it was horrible. It was the worst experience of my life. The next couple of weeks were just horrific as far as, just being at home and, you're going to be a bum. You're not going to make anything yourself. You need an education, blah, blah, blah. So I put up with this for a couple of weeks, and, both of my folks worked, and, it wasn't easy. So a couple of weeks later, I decided to go get a job. So I went down to the Army recruiter. And I said, listen, what's the deal? What do I owe you? My number's sort of low. And I said, I'll probably get called maybe in the middle of summer, maybe later on. I said, what's the deal here? He goes, they're taking guys in the Marines now. And I said, I'm not too keen on going in the Marines. I said, but what's the deal with the Army? He goes, sign here, 2 years, just like you're drafted. And it would be just like we pushed up the draft. So I signed the papers, Mr. Know-It-All, and, I knew more than everybody, my folks, teachers, So I go home. I said, I got a job. I said, doing what? I said, I joined the Army. Oh, my God, you're going to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So here we go. So a couple weeks later, I leave. I go to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for 8 weeks, followed by 8 weeks in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And they sent me home for 30 days. And the end of June, voila, I'm in Vietnam. Now, the thing that I guess I really didn't understand or whatever, but I never was around anybody from another walk of life. It was my first real interaction with a lot of black soldiers. And, I can go back right now, my friend Miles Thomas. Miles is he's a retired firefighter. He lives in Virginia Beach, Virginia now. And Miles and I were put in a position together when we first got in Vietnam. And I think he felt the same thing I did. He didn't trust me as far as he could throw me. And I'm over there trying to make sure all my stuff is zipped up in my rucksack so he don't steal it, But this is what we grew up in. It was very segregated in 1970. And, being with Miles 2 days and laying there at night looking up at the stars going, what the heck, we're 10,000 miles from home. And we started talking about our folks, our likes, our dislikes, our girlfriends, our sports. Well, we all were probably better than we probably all were all-stars. We probably all should have got scholarships, but that's another story for another day, But after a couple of days, Miles and I both realized, we looked at each other and says, what's the difference? What's the difference? We all bleed red. That was sort of our motto. When I was in training, I never had touched a gun until I was in the military. I never fired a weapon. I get to the range and they give me an M16, and I don't know whether I couldn't see the sights correctly or whatever. I sucked. I mean, I was horrible. I mean, I couldn't hit a damn target 20 yards in front of me. And I got these guys with the big chaw in their mouth, and they're sitting there, and they're hitting that baby 500 yards down there. And I'm like, oh God, I'm not going to make it. Well, in the 7th week, they gave us M60 training, which was your machine gun. I strapped on a couple belts. I pulled that trigger, and it was like singing. And I said, I may not know what I'm going to hit, but I'm going to hit something in front of me. I'm going to have enough ammo where something's going down in front of me. I ended up, carrying a machine gun pretty much my entire time in Vietnam. April 12th of 1971, Alpha Company of our battalion had gone into an LZ, a landing zone. And when the helicopter hit the landing zone, the first couple guys that jumped off, it was like Bonnie and Clyde. It ran into a hellhole, and it was a horrible firefight. Well, one of the guys that had jumped off the chopper, they weren't able to retrieve his body. And the helicopter pilot had to make his mind up. If we land the chopper, we're going to lose 10 guys, 12 guys, depending, and try to, get the guy. The theme of the Army, or the theme of most military, we never leave a man behind, okay? So the next day, even though we're 78 strong, they told Delta Company, our unit, they were going to combat assault us into the region. The second day, we made the ridgeline on the 15th. We made the beeline, sort of made a beeline, as much as we could towards the objective, which was to get the body. Now, since it was bombed so much, it was triple canopy jungle. Well, the trees were a tangled mess because of all the bombs that were dropped. So you got probably 120 pounds on your back because you've doubled and tripled your ammo. You got your gun, you're crawling underneath, crawling over it. You got these sticker bushes that they call wait a minute vines, where it catches your shirt and it goes, wait a minute, big boy. About 6 o'clock that night, we knew we were getting close to the objective. We weren't sure how close we were, but we knew we were close, but it was hard to see anything because so many trees were knocked down. So the captain says, there was a good amount of trees knocked down in this one area, which gave us a block in case we were attacked that night. So he says, okay, let's set up our night defensive position here. It's an NDP site. Let's set it up here. And in Vietnam, every night when you set up, you do it in a circular fashion. Reason being is if you set up just in a straight line how you were walking and said, okay, we're going to drop here and camp out. If you get attacked, it's haphazard. You make the circle. It's like circling the wagons in the old days, okay? That's what we circle the wagons. So you got a 3-4 man position like this. So if there's any movement outside of this perimeter at night, you don't go, who's there? What you do is you lock and load. And then the next morning at first light, you go see what's left, okay? As the guys are setting up their night defensive position, you take a squad and you walk around the perimeter to the best of your ability to see if there's any signs of the enemy. Any elephant grass smashed down, any food wrappers or food cans, any fires that might have been started, any indications that there's an enemy. Now, if you find something like that, you got a call to make. You either pick it up and move back a little bit, or you ain't sleeping that night. Okay, you're not sleeping that night, trust me. You're sleeping like with a toothpick with your eye open. So that night, this Lieutenant McKenzie, who was our only black lieutenant, He was from South Carolina, and he was only in country. He got in country in January. He's a good guy, fair as a day can be. He was one of the only supervisors I had, lieutenants and stuff, where he wouldn't go, you, go into that tunnel and tell me what you find. He would say, you, follow me. L.T. McKenzie took the squad and he started going down this trail we were on, all day. Well, he probably gets maybe, 75 yards or 100 yards from where we were setting up, and all hell broke loose. I mean, it was, oh my God. A firefight in Vietnam is you would be going along and it would be like this. That silence you just heard, that's what it's like. And all of a sudden, from that silence, it goes to the loudest things you can ever imagine. The explosions, the gunfire. I mean, it's something that, you're going to react. You can't think, when stuff like this happens. Well, turns out that Lieutenant McKenzie and this Jerry Stearns the enemy was waiting for them, and they let two of our guys walk past their first line of defense, their first bunkers. And once they got two of our guys, but we don't know this, we're setting up here. Once they got our two guys inside their perimeter, voila. I mean, they let it go. And Jerry Stearns, I believe he may have been killed instantly. But when you get in a firefight, it doesn't last 20 minutes. It lasts, we call it a mad minute, 40, 50, 60 seconds. It feels like an hour, but it's just constant firing. And then all of a sudden, silence, deadly silence. That's where I think that comes from. Well, when this silence comes, the only thing we can hear is a couple of the guys were able to scamper back. I don't know how, but don't ask me how. But a couple of guys, they were living right. Well, Lieutenant McKenzie was screaming for help. Help, I need a medic. I'm hit. We all came up to these logs that were down where we were used. How do we know we were going to use these for our line of defense? So some of these trees had fallen down from the bombings. So we got up to the logs, and I just told these guys, I said, listen, I said, give me a base of fire. I said, I can get up there. I said, but you guys got to bring it. I mean, you gotta shut them down. So I swapped out my M60 and took an M16. And when I told them I was ready, they brought it. Well, what they did is there was this trail I was going to go down. Well, they had to fire to the right and left of the trail. And unless it was the guy that didn't like me, evidently everybody liked me. So, but the enemy didn't know. They knew they were getting it. Okay, so what do you do when you're being shot at? You get down, you duck. So that was our thought process. When I went forward, that they would get down and they wouldn't see. Guess who's coming to dinner? Well, I get up there. I find Lieutenant McKenzie. Jerry Stearns is next to him. He's dead already. So I was trying to figure out where he was shot or where he was hit and everything. And I can hear, now I have no idea that I'm inside the enemy. I have no idea that where I'm at that point. Well, I can hear, I'm here. Here I can hear high-pitched, excited, shrill Vietnamese voices behind me. But what's wrong with that picture? I'm here, enemy's here, my guys are back there. So I realized then I had no choice on what I could do. So I crawled over to this the bunker that I heard the voices coming from. I unloaded a magazine, and I went over and I just took LT Mackenzie over my shoulder and whoosh, made a beeline for the rest of our guys. I probably got maybe 50, 60, 70 yards, and there was a huge explosion to my right, and they said sometime later it was a satchel charge or whatever, which is a larger type grenade that will be thrown from like a bunker. So evidently, that's where they were at. So this thing, the explosion happened. I had LT Mackenzie over my shoulder. Well, the funny thing in life is you're trying to help someone. Well, guess what? That explosion threw us both off the trail into the brush. It basically, he gurgled a couple times and died. He didn't survive. When you look at things in life, he probably saved my life. I had him draped over me. My head. The only thing I left open was my right side, and that's unfortunately where I got the shrapnel. The shrapnel went through my chest wall, through my lung, through my liver, and embedded in my kidney. So we're laying off to the side in the brush, and now this mad minute happens again. They start firing, guards are firing. Thank God I couldn't get up. I wasn't in shock, but my body was in shock. I couldn't get up. Well, I could hear things whistling over me. Well, this goes on, like I said, 40, 50, 60 seconds. Everybody, they stop, we stop. Well, now I'm the one barking for a medic. I'm hit, I need a medic. And a few minutes later, this guy's Charlie Crone comes crawling up. He comes crawling up. As he's bandaging me up, he gets shot in the stomach. He just groans and crawls back and said, I'll send somebody else, okay? Well, in life, when you say to yourself, no way that this will ever happen. Well, there was a guy there in our company that him and I didn't get along too good, okay? And if there was a list of 100 people, he would have been about number 170 to come and help me. Well, I'll be damned. I'm laying there in my darkest moment, and who comes crawling up? Phil Brummett. No conversation, grabs my collar and just starts dragging me. Just nothing. That was it. He started dragging me back, probably the last 20, 25 yards. Well, we get almost all the way to the rest of our guys. There was some kind of an explosion. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was our artillery or whatever, but there was another explosion. I got hit in the foot, leg, and back. How I got it in the back, I don't know. Maybe I was scooting, whatever, I don't know. I don't know how a piece of shrapnel got in the middle of my back. But Phil got it in the leg and the arm. Well, both of us did our best to help each other, and were able to get up and go the last 10 or yards or so. And when we got to the logs, the guys pulled us over, and they finished bandaging me up and leaned me against a tree and gave me my M16 and told me, hey, if we get overrun, this is what we got to do. I was there about 2.5 hours, and I thank God I didn't bleed out. But I was medevaced out with the chopper pilot that dropped a jungle penetrator. He hovered on top of the trees and dropped the jungle penetrator down. They loaded me up on the jungle penetrator. As I was going up, the NVA shot a rocket-propelled grenade that glanced off the skid and exploded behind the chopper and threw the chopper forward. So the chopper ended up taking 14 hits waiting for me. So, we were very lucky that I got, that part. They took me back to the 85th evac where I had surgery, 10 hours of surgery. Spent 12 more days in Vietnam. Came stateside and spent a year and a half at Great Lakes Naval Hospital. And voila. You know, back in 1971, there wasn't Google. There wasn't computers. There wasn't cell phones. There was nothing. There was the white pages. So all of my address books and everything I owned was in my rucksack. Well, they didn't worry about my rucksack when they were hauling me out. So I lost all of my basic information about anybody's addresses and phone numbers. There was one particular guy that I had made a promise to. His name was Robert Hine. And I don't know why the hell he did this, but he made a pact with me. He said, if something happens to either one of us, promise me that you will go visit my mom and let her know what happened. And I said, I will. No, unbeknownst to me, son of a gun made the deal with somebody else too. But I found this out 20 years later. We get into the 80s, and I have come up with dead ends on everything I'm doing. A month later, I get a couple of phone calls on my answering machine. Answering machine, okay? You had those answering machines. And one thing was, Zwit, Kelly's here. You got to call me. I'm like, okay. Call him up, no answer. Then I get another call. Jim, my name is Pat Condren. And name sort of wasn't familiar. He goes, I know where Bob's mom is. Call me. And I'm like, son of a gun. So I call him. He ended up, he's the guy that Bob made the other deal with. Hey, and when he left Vietnam, he did not go home. He went and spent 4 days with Bob's mom. I mean, that's the power of camaraderie, okay? I mean, not being home for a year and leaving that hellhole and not going home, but going to see that mom. I went out there for that memorial service and the dedication. And when I met that mom, she sat there, and the news guy, Stan Atkinson, had us on the news. And Stan said, what does this mean to you that the guy who's your son got a Bronze Star for going forward and helping carry him back to safety? She goes, it's like a part of Bobby coming back. Oh, I mean, yeah. Oh, I'm balling, 3 Marines. She is stoic, and we're all balling, you know? Well, when I saw that, I made it. I said, I'm going to find everyone. I mean, this isn't just for this person, because none of these moms or dads were told. They got a telegram home. Your son's been killed by hostile fire. His body be home in 7 to 10 days. You know, don't call us, we'll call you, kind of thing. That's what they were sent home. They weren't. And commanding officers would have got court-martialed if they would have written or told the family. That's how it was. I mean, so the only one that's going to tell them is us. So I got home, and I said, that's it. So I was nuts. So I went crazy. Well, I ended up finding 7 of the 8 families by 1991. 1991, I can't find William Ward's family. He's a black guy from somewhere in South Carolina or North Carolina. They were coming up to dead ends. And I'll just be damned, you know, we just couldn't find him. On April 15th, which is the day all of our guys died, 40 years later, on April 15, 2011, 3 of us are at the wall. About 1:30 in the afternoon, there's a black woman, 2 black women, off to our right side, and they're talking to the park ranger. So after they get done talking to the park ranger, they walk over to us and excuse us they want to get up to the wall. We step back. So they're going and looking. The woman's looking with her hand, and she's looking. Well, all of our names are probably 6 or 7 lines from the bottom. That's just the way it is. And, you know, you have to like kneel down again. Well, when that woman knelt down, something inside of me just like, hey, I tapped on her shoulder. I said, can I help you find a name? She goes, I'm looking for William Ward. Well, I'm like, oh my God in heaven. I turned around. I said, this is Ward's family. These two guys start bawling. I'm crying. She's crying, you know. And I put my arm around her and I said, oh, I'm so glad that you came for the anniversary. She says, what anniversary? I said, today, 40 years ago today, William lost his life in Vietnam with 7 others. She goes, oh my God. He goes, we thought he was by himself. He goes, no, this was a documented battle, which I'll give you the documentation. I'll send you anything you want. And she was like, you know, oh, thank you. I said, wait a minute. What are you doing here? Why are you here today? She says, this is my daughter. These are my 2 granddaughters. I'm a school principal and a minister, and I live in Hampton, Virginia, which is a 2-hour train ride. Goes, this morning was Grandparents' Day at my granddaughter's school, and I decided to take the day off and surprise them. So we went to their program this morning, and it was such a beautiful day, and I've never been here to do a rubbing. You tell me. Divine intervention? I had a video camera. I had a thing I carried in my ammo can, a regular 8 movie camera, and I took movies of myself in Vietnam. And I had about 8 seconds of her son dancing and goofing around. And they were having a family reunion the following month, and I copied the thing on a DVD and sent it to him. And his mom was able to see 40 years later her son dancing and goofing around. This tells the story. This was the front page of the Tribune, May 29th, 2011. The 8 rubbings I did were the whole front page. And then the inside story with the pictures of all the guys and basically the story that I just told you. And it was I bought so many of these. I can't tell you how many I bought, but every family got as many as they wanted. And even though it was 40 years later, being on the front page of a international newspaper and having them honored like that, I mean, they're never forgotten by their families, but, you know, they know that we haven't forgotten. They know that their sons and their brothers have not been forgotten.